At 0200 hours, the convoy holds in the canyon corridor under U.S. jurisdiction. Lieutenant Sarah Whitfield stands in the open hatch of the lead vehicle, responsible for recovering the missing reconnaissance team and for the safety of every soldier behind her. Canyon walls rise 100 feet above the formation, trapping dust and muting each return. Diesel engines idle under grit-coated armor while her paper map, marked with red grease pencil roots, rests against her glove. Wind pushes fine stone across the road as she confirms the remaining fuel window and the narrow evac timing tied to her movement. Visibility falls under 100 yards. Headquarters continues to authorize the route as clear, but the corridor's silence contradicts that confidence. Sarah checks the command net. Static flickers on the channel, usable but unreliable. She monitors axle clearance, inspects her gear straps, and verifies her optics remain clean despite drifting grit. Dust hangs in the headlights without dispersal, forming layers that do not behave like normal canyon airflow. Signal integrity drops below half. She studies the rock faces, searching for detail that explains the reconnaissance team's silence. Wind groans across stone as dust slides through the convoy line. She lifts the map board under red lens light and fixes her next decision point. Recovery mission, 0200 hours. Engines idle low as the canyon echo tightens around the formation. This is the second before routine turns into crisis. Brake lights reflect off suspended canyon dust as the convoy holds position. Engines send a low vibration through the armored hull while cold air funnels between the rock walls at 01-something hours. A radio handset vibrates against metal as Lieutenant Sarah Whitfield awaits updated guidance under U.S. Army authority. Signal integrity drops on the command channel. Subscribe and drop your location. Make sure you're subscribed and tell us where you're watching from. The convoy holds in the canyon corridor at 0130 hours. Engines idling low as dust drifts through the narrow lane. Canyon walls rise 100 feet above the vehicles, trapping headlights and muting each return. The corridor's width varies between 12 and 20 yards, forcing disciplined spacing and slow, deliberate movement. Lieutenant Sarah Whitfield stands in the open hatch of the lead vehicle, verifying axle clearance and monitoring the forward sector. She serves as the convoy commander under U.S. Army authority, accountable for the recovery of the missing reconnaissance team and for the safety of every vehicle behind her. Visibility drops under 100 yards. She studies the terrain through night vision optics, noting unstable shale scattered along the right shoulder. The fragments are irregular, not yet indicating a pattern, but out of place for a route assessed as routine. Her paper map rests against the interior panel, marked with red, grease pencil notations showing the reconnaissance team's last confirmed position 4 hours earlier. A clipboard beside her records the time of last contact. Dust has begun to settle on the armor, forming a thin, uneven layer that shifts with each gust of cold wind. Signal integrity degrades on the command channel. Sarah listens to the static-laden confirmation from headquarters, the staff officer reiterating that the route is clear and that no anomalous activity has been reported. She acknowledges the update in calm, clipped language, logging the time and retaining her own assessment. Her training emphasizes adherence to orders, but her duty requires accuracy, and accuracy begins with observation. She moves her attention to the second vehicle in line, confirming headlights are angled correctly and that the driver maintains proper interval. Dust concentration increases in the forward sector. The canyon funnels wind in unpredictable directions, pushing fine debris across metal surfaces and under tires. Drivers report mild traction loss on the left shoulder. Sarah checks the fuel window for each vehicle, confirming they retain enough capacity to manage an unexpected halt. Red lens interior lights glow inside the lead cabin, illuminating map markings and the digital clock reading 0130 hours. The convoy waits for her next movement order. Route status unverified. She voices the line as she reviews the last known traffic from the reconnaissance team. Their message at 01 hours placed them roughly 1 mile ahead, noting no visual contact with potential hazards. No transmissions have followed. Headquarters attributes the silence to terrain interference. But Sarah notes that the team historically adjusts position to maintain communication. The absence of even a partial signal stands out. Visibility declines further as suspended dust thickens inside the corridor. She signals the staff sergeant in the second vehicle, directing him to conduct another night vision sweep of the upper left wall. The canyon face reflects minimal light, showing fractured rock with no recent disturbance, but the right wall displays loose shale that appears recently shifted. No definitive conclusion can be drawn, yet the inconsistency prompts her to mark it on the map. Engine noise reverberates between the rock faces, creating a steady hum beneath radio static. Inside the third vehicle, the medic checks gear inventory under red lens lighting. Tourniquets, bandages, and extraction tools lie secured inside their compartments. Sarah notes their readiness without comment. She reviews the convoy's order of march, ensuring that recovery assets remain in position should extraction be required. Each adjustment to the column is logged at the time it occurs, documented with care. Signal distortion increases on the upper net. She attempts a brief check-in with the rear vehicle, confirming spacing at approximately 40 yards. The canyon compresses steering options, and drivers rely heavily on her ordered tempo. She instructs them to maintain low gear movement once they advance, preventing abrupt shifts that may destabilize the formation on loose ground. Wind moves grit across metal surfaces in steady, cold patterns. Sarah monitors the ambient temperature and calculates its impact on engine performance. The narrow evac window remains tied to movement speed, and any delay compresses that margin. She confirms with headquarters that air support remains available, receiving another reassured acknowledgement that conditions remain nominal. She records the statement and continues her own assessment without altering posture or tone. Visibility decreases again as dust hangs motionless in the beam of the lead vehicle. The canyon's airflow does not match headquarters' expectations for an undisturbed route. Sarah notes the discrepancy in her log, marking it as an environmental irregularity requiring continued observation. She motions to the gunner to adjust the forward scan angle, ensuring coverage of the upper left quadrant. The gunner complies, steady and silent. She rechecks the paper map, running a gloved finger along the planned route. Grease pencil markings track the reconnaissance team's intended movement. The lack of contact now surpasses routine delay. She writes the updated time of last attempt beside the corresponding grid coordinate. Signal noise masks part of headquarters' next transmission. She listens again, filtering the static, and receives another confirmation that the corridor remains clear. The inconsistency between the remote assessment and the canyon's physical indicators becomes the first fracture in the operating picture. Sarah acknowledges the message professionally, but her attention stays on the ground truth. She adjusts her stance, preparing to direct the column forward while documenting the contradiction that will drive the next decision point. The convoy pushes deeper into the corridor at 0310 hours, engines straining as the grade increases and the canyon walls close tighter around the formation. Lieutenant Sarah Whitfield stands in the open hatch of the lead vehicle, monitoring axle clearance while dust drifts downward in irregular sheets. The movement pattern is inconsistent with normal erosion, and she marks the change as an operational note. A cold wind funnels through the rock and carries fine grit across her field jacket, tapping against her goggles in light bursts. She checks the spacing behind her, confirming each vehicle maintains controlled interval on the incline. Visibility falls under 100 yards. She radios headquarters with an update, stating the narrowing lane, the irregular debris distribution, and the dust behavior. Headquarters responds with a routine assessment and authorizes continued forward movement. Sarah acknowledges the guidance and logs the discrepancy between remote interpretation and ground condition. She rotates her thermal optics toward the upper sector, scanning for movement. A faint glow registers for a moment before fading behind fractured stone. Thermal readings show a stationary bloom in the upper sector. She instructs her gunner to maintain elevated watch and informs the medics in the second vehicle to prep their kits under red light. The recovered reconnaissance operator remains in the rear element, and the medics need full readiness if movement accelerates. She adjusts her map board, the grease pencil lines flickering under her headlamp, and updates her estimated timeline for the medevac aircraft holding beyond the ridge line. Its fuel window narrows with each minute of canyon delay. Fuel window for medevac support shrinks by 10 minutes. Shale beneath the lead tires shifts in small, uneven cascades. The vehicle weight transfers left, then settles. Sarah marks the slope instability and orders reduced speed to maintain traction. She calls for a status check across the column. Each section leader reports in with disciplined brevity. Engine temperatures hold steady. Load distribution remains within tolerance, and no crew member reports equipment failure. She listens to each update while continuing to scan the rock faces for indicators of forced movement or concealed positioning. Signal integrity drops below half on the command channel. Static rolls across her headset as wind pushes through the corridor again. Dust falls in vertical lines, straight down, unaffected by crossflow, indicating a barrier or obstruction higher in the canyon. She notes the anomaly without projecting intent. Her role is to report conditions, not interpret motive. The paper map on her board shows the last verified position of the reconnaissance team 4 hours earlier. The absence of any new traffic, radio check, or footprint pattern presents a widening information gap. Dust concentration increases in the forward sector. The canyon curves slightly to the right, and headlights sweep across angled stone where irregular debris accumulates on the shoulder. Some rock pieces appear recently moved, edges sharp rather than weathered. Sarah studies the distribution pattern. The debris sits against the slope instead of at the base, a sign of external force rather than natural slide. She reports the finding to headquarters. The response returns with the same confident tone. Route remains within operational tolerance. She documents the answer without expression. Visibility drops under 100 yards. The medics in the second vehicle secure their packs and confirm readiness. Red lens light reflects off buckles and gloves as they check airway tools and pressure dressings. Sarah monitors the preparation through her rear camera feed. She adjusts her internal timeline again. The medevac aircraft will not hold indefinitely. Fuel reserves dictate strict timing. If extraction requires lift, the delay window is tightening beyond comfortable margins. She records the updated estimate on her clipboard. Rockfall clatters against armor. The sound is brief but distinct. Small fragments strike the left side of the lead vehicle. Sarah angles her optics toward the rim. Thermal shows no movement, but dust hangs above the outcropping longer than expected. She logs the event and informs headquarters. They acknowledge, but maintain no change to the route status. She does not dispute the call. She records it. Her responsibility remains the accurate translation of ground truth into the operational record. Signal distortion increases on the command net. She directs the third vehicle to widen spacing on the next stretch to counter the slope's instability. The driver affirms with steady tone. Sarah's own vehicle crests a small rise, revealing a narrower corridor beyond. The lane tightens to less than 15 feet. Shale stacked on both sides. Engine strain increases as the incline shifts steeper. Dust falls in a slow, drifting sheet rather than dispersing in open air. She marks the airflow behavior as another inconsistency. Thermal readings show renewed bloom near the right wall. A single glow flares faintly, stationary, too regular in shape to be environmental. Sarah does not classify it. She simply notes position, size, and duration. She advises her gunner and updates headquarters. The reply echoes earlier statements, no threat indicators. Convoy cleared to continue. Sarah's posture remains composed. She documents the response and updates her operational log. The anomaly persists in the corner of her optics before dissipating entirely. Fuel window for medevac support shrinks again. The corridor's geometry compresses sound, making engine noise rebound in short echoes. The convoy slows to maintain control on the uneven surface. Sarah checks her watch. 0330 hours. She calculates time remaining for safe overlap with airborne support. With each minute lost to terrain or instability, the margin for error reduces. She updates the medics quietly, keeping them informed of potential timing risk. Signal degradation expands across secondary channels. Shale slides again under the lead tires, this time shifting enough to tilt the vehicle 2 degrees. Sarah orders incremental correction and has the second vehicle halt briefly to avoid chain reaction drift. Dust lifts from the movement and settles in uneven pockets. She watches the distribution. The settling pattern points toward an obstruction again, something altering airflow above them. She records it factually, indicators mounting. The map board under her glove shows the predicted path narrowing further ahead. The reconnaissance team's last known track cuts across a side pocket less than 300 yards forward. If they diverted under pressure, the debris distribution might reflect that. Sarah measures the angle, compares it with the current slide pattern, and notes the divergence. She briefs headquarters. The answer returns with confident dismissal. She writes it down. Visibility remains degraded under 100 yards. The convoy rounds another bend. The corridor narrows again. Walls nearly vertical now. Dust behavior grows more irregular. A faint vibration moves through the ground, subtle but present. Engines strain upward against increased resistance. Sarah checks fuel status across vehicles. Levels remain within acceptable limit for current pace, but prolonged delay will reduce medevac alignment further. Signal quality holds at reduced level. She documents all of it: terrain shifts, airflow anomalies, thermal irregularities, command responses, fuel compression, medevac timing risk. Every observation sits inside her record exactly as presented. Nothing interpreted, nothing omitted. Her final look at the map confirms the next bend will commit the convoy fully to the corridor with no immediate pullout. This is the last stable moment before the situation turns. Lieutenant Sarah Whitfield halts the column at 0340 hours. Not a full stop. Only the controlled pause required to reassess without surrendering momentum. Engines idle under the rock overhangs, producing a steady vibration through armor coated in dust. Cold canyon air drifts between the vehicles, carrying fine grit that settles along gear straps and map edges. She steps up in the open hatch, raises her optics, and studies the debris distribution again. The angles confirm her earlier suspicion: the rock was pushed from above, not fallen from natural erosion. A weak transmission comes through from the trapped team. The signal crackles across her headset, faint and clipped, but present long enough for her to mark a grid position. She stabilizes the handset against her shoulder and records the bearing on her grease pencil map board. The pocket sits less than 150 yards ahead, narrow, and without visible exit. The reconnaissance team did not drift off course. They were driven into that space. She documents the finding and informs headquarters of the real geometry. The staff officer responds with procedural acknowledgement, but offers no revision to the previous routine assessment. She logs the mismatch without comment. Rotor wash displaces loose shale along the ledge. The medevac aircraft holds station above the canyon mouth, fuel critical and waiting for extraction clearance. The wash pushes fine stone against the vehicles, adding a layer of instability to the already narrow lane. Sarah marks the urgency silently by updating her internal timeline. She orders the second vehicle to pivot 5 feet left to create staggered separation, allowing her lead element to rotate into an angle that can break the trapped team's line of exposure. The driver executes the movement with controlled precision, wheels grinding against uneven shale. Command channel distortion increases as the canyon narrows. Sarah repeats her operational findings over the net, ensuring headquarters receives a complete record of deviations. She reports debris geometry, thermal anomalies, and the renewed transmission from the reconnaissance team. Static cuts across several words, but the message remains intact. She is altering formation posture to regain tactical advantage. She states the justification clearly and in formal terms. The staff officer acknowledges receipt. She documents the exchange on her clipboard under red lens light. Fuel remaining for air support falls below the safe window. The medevac pilot relays updated fuel figures through the relay aircraft orbiting above the ridge. The window for safe hover support compresses to minutes, not tens of minutes. Sarah adjusts her plan accordingly. She directs her rear vehicle to anchor a protective arc. Engines positioned to counter the slope's offset. Dust shifts along the armor as the weight transfers. She studies the distribution again, confirming the lane's instability. She lifts her map board and redraws the formation in a staggered layout. The updated lines reflect a geometry the canyon did not expect, a deliberate angle allowing both extraction and egress under simultaneous pressure. The board becomes a visual record of controlled recalculation. She steps back into the hatch, checks her straps, and radios the section leaders. Each sergeant responds with crisp acknowledgement. No uncertainty, no hesitation. A weak transmission comes through again from the trapped team. This time the voice is clearer, reporting limited cover and compromised visibility. Sarah relays confirmation to headquarters while signaling her gunner to maintain elevated watch. She tracks the heat signature faintly visible on thermal, holding steady behind fractured stone. The pattern aligns with forced confinement. She marks the data on her board. Dust continues drifting downward in unnatural sheets, evidence of obstruction above. Rotor wash surges as the medevac aircraft repositions. The vibration carries across the canyon, pushing grit in erratic swirls. Sarah uses the momentary visibility improvement to confirm the pocket's entrance. It sits 20 yards wider than initial estimate, but the interior narrows sharply. She orders the second and third vehicles to angle their lights to illuminate the approach without flooding the reconnaissance team's cover. Headlights refract through suspended dust, producing controlled beams across the rock. Command channel distortion stabilizes briefly. She uses the clear moment to issue final maneuver orders. First vehicle shifts to anchor the left angle. Second vehicle covers the right incline. Third vehicle provides rear security. Every instruction is delivered calm and procedural. Each response is tight, respectful, and without commentary. She informs headquarters that she is initiating deviation required for personnel recovery and states that operational liability remains with her at the tactical level. She records the time 03:48 hours on her clipboard. A weak thermal bloom appears near the pocket entrance. Sarah identifies it as possible equipment carried by the trapped team. She signals the medics to stage behind the second vehicle. They move under red light, packs secured, gloves on, headlamps dimmed. She feels the ground tremble slightly as shale shifts under the repositioned vehicles. The staggered formation now provides cross coverage the canyon's natural geometry cannot counter. She notes the improved posture. Shale skitters across metal as the angle corrects. She advances the lead vehicle 10 feet forward, wheels steady, engine controlled. The movement breaks the direct exposure line that would have trapped the convoy in the narrowest section. She confirms clearance behind her, then authorizes the medics to approach the pocket entrance. They step carefully, boots crunching against unstable stone. Visibility remains limited, but the path holds. A weak acknowledgement comes from the reconnaissance team. It is enough to confirm contact. The medics reach the pocket, stabilize the first operator, and prepare extraction carry. Sarah logs the event and informs headquarters. The staff officer acknowledges again, still without adjusting the official assessment. She records that detail as well. Dust lines shift along the armor as rotor wash pulses overhead. Sarah rechecks fuel timing with the medevac aircraft. The window remains narrow but workable. She orders controlled withdrawal to the staggered configuration, ensuring vehicles maintain angle and spacing. The recovered team is moved into the second vehicle. Engines idle under canyon overhangs, producing a steady hum across rock. She inspects the lane one final time, confirming the trap is neutralized through maneuver rather than force. Rotor wash fades slightly as air support repositions for departure. She takes her clipboard, writes the deviation summary, the justification, and her acknowledgement of responsibility. The document bears her time and grid entries, providing a complete, accountable record of the reversal. The convoy now holds in a stable tactical position, threat contained and recovery secured. She ends the entry with confirmation that the immediate danger is controlled and fully documented. Lieutenant Sarah Whitfield stands beside the lead vehicle at 03 hours, documenting each adjustment she orders with calm precision. Engine noise hums against the canyon walls, and the red lens lamp clipped to her rig casts a narrow circle over waterproof paper. She writes the time, the grid, and the justification for the deviation, ensuring every action is accounted for in the record. Dust settles along the edges of the clipboard as she notes the shift in terrain and the revised spacing of the convoy. 100 yards ahead, medics work under limited light, checking the pulse of the recovered reconnaissance operator. Their movements stay steady, practiced, and quiet. The canyon walls reflect the glow of convoy lights in uneven patterns, and fine grit drifts through the beams without dispersal. Sarah reviews her grease pencil marks and updates the sector alignment to reflect the extraction just completed. The pencil scratch over the engine hum remains controlled and deliberate. Signal quality fluctuates on the upper net, and her transmission to headquarters takes a moment to clear. She reports each detail without drift, following procedure exactly. She notes her deviation from the initial plan, states the necessity, and logs the confirmation she receives from the staff officer on duty. No raised voices, no compressed pacing, only professional acknowledgement across the channel. Signal reliability falls again on the auxiliary net. She moves vehicle by vehicle, confirming that each section leader understands the updated posture. Subordinates respond with disciplined brevity, affirming instructions without embellishment. She rechecks fuel levels, reviews the medevac window, and ensures the recovered operator is stabilized for movement. Duty over ego. The canyon stays quiet except for engines idling under rock, and Sarah continues updating her log with careful attention. She closes the entry with a clear record of conditions, decisions, and justification, holding firm to the requirements of accountability. Her final check of the column affirms readiness, and her posture carries steady certainty that responsibility continues forward without interruption. The convoy holds in the canyon at 0320 hours, engines idling low as dust drifts upward along the rock walls. Starlight reflects off suspended grit, and the radio carries a soft hiss that never fully clears. Headquarters continues to affirm its earlier assessment from a workspace lit by steady fluorescent panels, their map showing a clean route forward. Lieutenant Sarah Whitfield studies her field map, marked by red grease pencil notations that contradict the remote picture. Command channel noise increases on the upper net. She reports the discrepancy with controlled clarity, stating the distance to the obstruction at 100 yards and the irregular debris pattern her team confirmed. Headquarters reiterates confidence in the route, citing earlier intel. Sarah's responsibility remains the safety of the vehicles and the personnel ahead, and her field data stands in direct tension with the remote assessment. Which call do you make? The dilemma is narrow and consequential. Follow headquarters' clean map and push the column forward, or halt movement based on the field indicators that challenge the official assessment. There is no neutral option in this moment. Tell us in the comments which call you make and why you choose it. The convoy moves out of the canyon at 0410 hours, engines steady as residual dust settles across armor. Early morning cold drifts along the corridor, and the faint rotor hum of a distant airframe carries through the rock. Debrief tents wait 100 yards ahead. Headlamps, reflecting off dust-coated gear while personnel prepare documentation under U.S. authority. Signal stability improves across the command channel. Inside the debrief space, papers shift against clipboard edges as the wind pushes lightly against the fabric. The canyon behind them is quiet now, returned to the silence that follows a completed movement. The mission proceeds into formal reporting, each action captured for accuracy and continuity. The procedural record stands, and the next operational requirement is already in motion. Next mission ready. If this mission reinforces why ground truth matters, like and subscribe, and stand by for the next operation already waiting.